Hi, I'm Stephanie Trenzo. I lead an amazingly creative team of puzzle solvers at Oracle who love sticky problems, who genuinely enjoy learning about our clients and driving transformation through technology. I'm here today to talk with you about KEMET's move of e-business suite and disaster recovery to Oracle Cloud, which laid a foundation for their overall cloud evolution. I've got some fantastic SMEs with me today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves as they share their perspectives throughout the agenda. Please do take note of our standard safe harbor agreement. As 2020 has taught us, life can be fairly unpredictable. I'm really delighted to bring this discussion to life with the real story of how KEMET has looked at their cloud transformation. Ground that with some practical tips from our Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI, product team. We'll hear from one of our migration experts how automation and process can be key to de-risking your moves, and then put it all in context of a broader cloud evolution framework. Don't forget to stick around because we will save time for live Q&A at the end. If you've tuned into this webinar, it's because you're thinking about how to look at your own cloud story, and what could be more useful than learning from others like you who are on their own transformational path. I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce Chris Hall, VP of Global IT at KEMET, who will share his perspectives and insights from deciding to move from on-premises to cloud, down selecting cloud platforms, choosing a services team to bring the right expertise, and then to successfully migrate a data center to OCI. The conversation today is more than just lifting and shifting e-business suite and disaster recovery. It's about transforming KEMET South Carolina data center, drastically improving performance, and creating an IT environment that can support KEMET's future growth plans. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you for having me, Stephanie.
Absolutely. So to kick off this conversation, can you please tell us just a little bit about KEMET and help us understand the key factors that drove your decision?
Absolutely. KEMET is a manufacturer of passive components, things that go into everything from an iPhone to a computer to a server to anything with electronics in it. And in that industry, it's really important that we be able to keep pace with our competitors, but the industry and our customers as well. And so when we looked at why cloud, or why, and especially why cloud infrastructure, there were many aspects to be considered. Not just the financial aspects of capital savings, operating cost reductions, and return on investment, but also the ability to align with the business's strategy, the ability to stay agile and keep up with the ebbs and flows of our business. We had to look at the risk of doing nothing. What if we just stayed on the existing architecture, stayed in our old, years old infrastructure and just kept trying to add to it and make do? What are the risks of that? And compare that to the benefits of upgrading to a new platform on premise or the cloud. And as we started looking at all those different aspects, we really decided that cloud was the way to go. The reasons for that were the ability to integrate. So it's more than just an ERP these days. Your ERP needs to talk to your sales system. Your ERP needs to talk to your quoting system. It has to be accessible to the sales team when they're outside of the facility. All of those things start coming into play. Additionally, you have to look at operating efficiency. Can you continue to ramp performance along with your business as it grows? Can you contract that performance and slow things down when the business seems to slow down? That ability to ramp up and down both is very important to keeping costs of IT aligned with the business. Another very big piece of this was our ability to perform outside the four walls. More and more, we were finding we were doing business outside of just our plants. And because of that, we needed an infrastructure that could keep up with the business. We were very glad that we made the move we did because of 2020. We went from 100% of people working at the office to all non-essential personnel working from home. Because of our investment in cloud infrastructure, we were able to make that migration with very little effort and pretty seamless to our users.
Well, I love the fact that you point out the risk of doing nothing. I think often people don't consider the fact that a non-decision is still a decision. So you make this choice to go to the cloud. There are many cloud providers in the market. Part of the process is determining which of these criteria is most important to your business. You have to down select a cloud platform provider that can meet your specific business and IT needs. So how did you come up with those criteria and why were they important to you?
One was the ability to support the expanding business through acquisition. KEMET grows and our industry grows a lot through acquisition. So the ability to integrate with a new acquisition quickly was very important. We also needed to be able to adapt to a cyclical business, one that goes up and down. So not only do you need to be able to spin up new capabilities quickly, you also need to be able to spin down, processors, compute power quickly as well, so that you're not spending money you don't need to. Obviously, ROI is always a key aspect of any big infrastructure purchase, and the ability to scale performance and have security and patching almost on demand was very important. And finally, improved monitoring was a big jump for cloud infrastructure, the ability to be proactive and see things happening before they impact the business.
I think too, sometimes, there's a lot of focus on the ability to scale up, and a lot of the cloud platform discussions around the ability to scale up take the highlight, but that ability to scale down is just as important, as you said, that flexible need to move based on the cadence of your business and the demands of the business. So, ultimately, what were those driving factors that led you to choose Oracle Cloud Infrastructure and think about the talent that you needed to bring in to support the right expertise as well?
Absolutely. So first was Exadata as a proven architecture. It was something that my team is already familiar with, and so there was a quick adoption from the internal team of the OCI architecture. Secondly, it was the annualized cost reduction that it represented. OCI, compared to replacing our current on-premise solution, was easily 50% less over a 5 to 10 year period. It also allowed us to focus on business solutions and not just maintaining hardware, not maintaining the infrastructure. We had a partner now with Oracle that took care of a lot of that heavy lifting so that our internal team could focus on business solutions. And finally was the improved performance.
Well, I love when customers have data to support their success stories. When you ran your before and after comparisons, how did Oracle Cloud do? Can you share any of that with us?
As you can see on the graphs that we've put together here, you can see in black what our performance was when we were running in our Simpsonville data center for some of our heaviest jobs, our hourly jobs, our weekly jobs. And you can see where Oracle's time to complete those jobs were significantly better on the hourly jobs, which is critically important, but it was still 10 to 15% faster than the horses that we were running in Simpsonville on the weekly jobs. And like I said, even that minor improvement on those weekly jobs was great because of the cost reductions that we got with OCI. But the big story is when we compared it to other third-party clouds and running all of our Oracle workloads in those environments, OCI was hands above the other platforms that we looked for from a 50 even more than that % improvement in performance.
Well, that's pretty compelling. I'm really glad to hear that. I'm sure everybody is excited about the success that you're seeing. So, part of what we do on the Oracle transformation team is help customers throughout the entire life cycle of their cloud evolution. And, we like to use the phrase, this is not goodbye, because we believe the real value of the cloud is not a journey with a destination, but this constant evolution. Now that you've seen this kind of success, what's next on your radar?
We really want to look at regionalized reporting hubs. What we mean by that is BI and analytics is really what's next. And so how do we deliver that with the best performance possible to a global workforce? And with OCI and the help of Oracle, what we're looking to do is actually bring the data from a reporting perspective and a read-only perspective into Asia, into Europe, not just North and South America, so that the data lives closer to the user. And that's going to speed up their access to do, next generation analytic projects. In addition to that, we're also looking at implementing single sign-on and then using the native integration between OCI and our Azure AD, one of our other clouds. And finally, advanced security monitoring, taking advantage more and more of all of the capabilities that OCI has to offer that we didn't have before.
So now you really get into the fun stuff here. So as much as we love to celebrate all the great parts of this story, for the folks that are listening, I think sometimes the most compelling parts of sharing a real life story are the lessons learned. What are the takeaways and the bits of advice that you might offer?
Absolutely. First, look at your patching levels. One thing that we got blindsided by and that we would do differently again was looking at our current patching levels and those required to move and migrate into the OCI cloud. It took us about 5 or 6 months to finish getting all of our applications and databases fully patched and upgraded to the point where we could move over. And so if we'd have known that ahead of time, we may have processed the projects a little bit differently and saved ourselves a lot of time. Secondly, we could have saved ourselves a lot of time not initially trying to do it on our own. We waited a couple of months to try to engage the Oracle Consulting and SOAR program, and again, could have sped up the project, I believe, by 20 or 30% had we invited them to help us from the very beginning.
Well, so clearing up technical debt and getting the right experts on the job, I do love when we do consider the fact that you need the humans and the right humans to make the benefits of the technology really shine. So thank you so much, Chris, for joining and sharing that story and the great lessons that you've learned. I'm excited to hear what comes next on your list. We are going to now switch to talk to Vish Patwardhan, who is the Director of Strategy and Business Development. And he's going to share with us 5 takeaways to marry up your true real life story with some details on how we look at Oracle Cloud from a product perspective.
Yes, I'd be happy to. Thank you, Stephanie. Look, so I think Chris laid out KEMET's considerations for why they moved to the cloud and why they chose OCI. And I think those considerations tend to vary somewhat for each organization. So what I thought I'd do is maybe spotlight 5 takeaways as to why customers choose OCI for eBusiness Suite, but not just eBusiness Suite, there are other workloads as well. Okay, so let's talk about the first key takeaway, which is OCI provides the most value compared to all of the other mega cloud vendors. And I think the key word there is value. Now, when you're purchasing something, when you're buying something, it all comes down to value. What are you buying? What are you getting? And what do you have to pay for it? What's the cost of it? So in the context of the cloud, what I think tends to bubble up to the top, at least in my many conversations that I've had with customers, are probably 6 factors. The first one is price. Of course, everybody wants the cloud to be priced reasonably and priced consistently, which is true for OCI. There's no regional variance in OCI's pricing similar to other cloud vendors. So when Chris wants to spin up regional reporting hubs, they can do that without having to worry about, hey, is it going to cost me 3, 4, 5 times more if I do it in some other region? Performance, everybody wants the cloud to perform well, to have it perform consistently. The same thing is true about security. Everybody wants the cloud to be secure, especially in this day and age of ransomware and legal exposure. OCI is built from the ground up to be highly secure. Security is woven into really every aspect of the cloud. And we're going to have other sessions where we double click into each of these areas, but suffice it to say it's highly secure. Let's talk a little bit about consumption. The fourth consideration, everybody wants the cloud to be easy to consume and, more importantly, change with their business needs. So the way Oracle does that with OCI is that Oracle gives you what we call UCCs, or Universal Cloud Credits. And with those, you have access to every single cloud service we have today, but then every service we will release in the future as well. So when we release these services, they automatically show up on your rate card. And if you so wish, you have complete flexibility in choosing to consume those services. Let's talk about SLAs, or service level agreements. Oracle or OCI has better service level agreements. So OCI guarantees not just availability, but the manageability and the performance of your workloads as well. And all of this is backed by service guarantees. All right, let's talk about architecture. So OCI is fundamentally differently architected. What we call Gen 2 enterprise grade cloud. And so there are a lot of different features, hundreds of different features, thousands of different features that make it so. And we don't have to cover them here, but what really it means is that Oracle has invested the time up front in getting the architecture right so we can deliver on all of the other considerations that are important for our customers: price, performance, security, et cetera, et cetera. All right, let's talk about the second key takeaway, which is the ability to modernize your e-business suite investment. And it's really getting to the platform capabilities. So a lot of our customers, when they move e-business suite to OCI, they're looking to maximize their huge investment in e-business suite to serve their constituents better, to develop innovative solutions tying in e-business suite, and maybe it's reporting capabilities, analytics, chatbots, robotic process automation, integrations, data science. Maybe they want to leverage our AI and machine learning libraries. But the key is that when you move e-business suite to OCI, you not only have an infrastructure platform, but you also have a rich set of platform capabilities and a portfolio of services that you can use to deliver on those promises. And increasingly, the EBS development team is making e-business suite increasingly OCI aware through Cloud Manager, through automation, et cetera. So it's even easier to take advantage of a lot of these platform capabilities. All right, the third key takeaway, there are hundreds of customers that are already running e-business suite on OCI, so this is tried and true. You're not going to be the first one. In fact, that number is actually much higher than 250 plus now. But suffice it to say, hundreds of customers are running on OCI already. Okay. And so here's, a few of the logos. You see marquee names. Certainly you heard Chris talk about KEMET and their experience in moving to OCI as well. What I thought I would do is maybe spend just a couple of minutes and talk about another customer experience. So this is 7-Eleven. This was an implementation that was done by Oracle Consulting as well. They moved, or 7-Eleven moved e-business suite, a number of other applications like Agile PLM. They also implemented their missing disaster recovery capability. And what they found when they tested their DR on OCI was that it performed 30 times better. And there's a quote from Sanjay, who's their senior program manager. Of course, they explored other cloud vendors, but then they ended up choosing OCI because of Exadata and because OCI offered more scalability and resilience than any other solution that was on the market. All right, let's talk a little bit about the fourth key takeaway, which is OCI has the highest customer satisfaction. And this was a finding from the IDC Cloud Path survey that was done, I want to say about 4 months ago at this point, done in second quarter of this year, 2020. And they interviewed 933 survey participants. And they found that OCI had the highest customer satisfaction or satisfaction score across any of the other mega cloud vendors out there, be it Amazon, be it Google, be it Azure, and majority, 86% of those they interviewed said they plan to spend more or increase their footprint on OCI. Okay, let's talk about the last key takeaway in that OCI is a great platform for all of your workloads, not just eBusiness Suite. And, I thought I'd maybe share a couple of examples. You might have heard about Zoom running on OCI. They actually, when they had their scale out, because they had about 10 million daily participants, and they had to scale out to over 300 million daily participants in the midst of this pandemic. They chose OCI for a number of reasons. They're moving over 7 petabytes of data on a daily basis through OCI. So massive, massive scale. And it's not just Zoom. There are lots of other customers. So if you're doing any package delivery transactions, if you're doing any banking transactions, if you're doing more real-time streaming now that you're spending more time at home, if you're doing any loyalty program transactions, a lot of that work, frankly, a lot of the COVID-related work as well, be it clinical trials, be it a lot of the data collection, a lot of that is happening on OCI. So unbeknownst to you, you might even be using OCI and not know it. So again, thousands of other customers, hundreds of thousands of mission critical workloads are running on OCI. And with that, I think I'll pass it back over to you, Stephanie. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vish. Hi, my name is Dawn Austin. I'm part of Oracle's cloud migration team. We're working with customers in all stages of their migration to the cloud and look forward to sharing with you today, pulling back the curtain a little bit on that Oracle SOAR approach that Chris mentioned and how it can make a difference for you as well. So our approach to migrating the workloads combines both the preparation and the automation to accelerate your time to benefit and reduce the overall risk. So yeah, sounds good, right? But how does it work? It's really a team sport because it combines your knowledge of workloads and your business cadence with our combined migration experience from multiple customer engagements. So we start by doing a full workload analysis up front, considering those scheduling constraints your business has so we can increase the predictability of migration activities. So understanding the workload characteristics based on that analysis allows us to group activities logically and streamline the effort. So automation allows us to quickly adjust the schedule when circumstances change because, a plan is just a plan until reality intrudes. So because we're just lifting and shifting the applications, the migration activities themselves become a really small part of the overall effort. Your users get the same EBS applications and customizations with the power of the cloud, minimizing your business disruption. So what are the benefits of this approach? No one likes surprises. Your business depends on these EBS capabilities. So first thing is that we can load your data during the planning phases to test real-life scenarios. So this is a very unique approach in the marketplace, and it gives you a degree of comfort over a kind of a generic view of data. So combining our best practices along with the deep Oracle skills of our cloud-certified teams allows us to migrate with consistency and speed. So we leverage the automation that's built into our cloud migration platform to increase the accuracy over a manual script-based approach. Some people are using a black box with scripts behind the scenes. And, the advantage of our SOAR platform is that you can watch it happening in real time. So you might have seen our 3 clicks to the cloud demo at Open World. It shows exactly where you are in the path with the extract and transform, provision, and migration activities all through the process. So best of all, our focus is no upfront costs with our outcome-based service. So we only bill when the data or application is migrated to the cloud. So our approach and the automation increase the predictability and allow us to accelerate the migration, increasing the economics for you. So now diving into the details a bit, here's the activities that happen during a typical migration process. Starting with the analysis and finishing with your business positioned to innovate with the cloud. You'll note migration is an iterative activity that proceeds in waves. So the benefit of that is the lessons learned in the first wave can be incorporated into subsequent waves. While the elapsed time is going to depend on the number of iterations performed and your specific test plan, indicative time ranges from 12 weeks for a small estate to up to 20 weeks for a larger estate.
Thanks a bunch, Dawn. I am always amazed hearing the stories of how much our deep skills in planning can help get through the migration more predictably. Next, I'd like to position everything we've talked about so far in the broader context of a full cloud evolution. As we know, examining existing workloads and applications is one element of a very complex set of criteria and decisions that companies make as they look at their overall transformations. So I'd like to introduce our cloud evolution framework. I'm going to run through this fairly quickly. So maybe as I go through this, you can think to yourself or even jot down the areas where you could use a deeper dive, where you've already spent a significant amount of time thinking, or you could, use some thought leadership. Our cloud evolution framework has 5 categories. And the idea here is that we've taken conversations we've had with clients, our own experiences, over hundreds and thousands of discussions across different industries, and tried to boil all of these many decisions that you need to consider, different factors and variables that you need to consider, into a framework that helps facilitate your thinking. The first category is think, and it's about driving an understanding of insights outside in from the industry and the market to inside out in terms of guidance. What do you need to put together to have the right business case to build the kind of consensus and buy-in necessary? And finally, putting that all into a strategy that isn't just a blueprint and a roadmap like you might have heard of, but it's something that actually leverages identifying success criteria so that you know if you're making progress against that roadmap, because they typically are not static, they're evolving. The second category is the one where we've actually spent a good bit of time today discussing in the prepare category. And we say prepare very intentionally because you aren't only moving workloads, as we heard Chris say, just for the fun of it. You're doing it because you're hoping to unlock new business value, new ways of working, and what comes next after that migration. So our prepare category is about setting up the right foundation. Are you modernizing, migrating, getting rid of technical debt, and making intelligent decisions about how you move to the cloud? Also considering things like essentials. We heard even Chris mentioning about security, thinking through if you're in an industry that needs to consider compliance or audit or regulatory kinds of considerations. And then finally, in the prepare category, we also think about change, because this tends to be one of those focus areas that gets set to the side until it's really necessary. So we ask that you think about that in advance. What's going to be required to not only make the technology pieces of the change happen, but what's going to need to happen for the process and the people, and kind of sparking those changes with the right intention. The third category is create, and this is where you get to have some fun. Start exploring, testing a hypothesis, building some confidence that you're headed in the right direction using those success criteria from your strategy. Innovating, white space, new applications, trying out the new technology, building new things that you weren't able to do prior to your move to the cloud. And then extensions, again, another part of the story we heard Chris mentioning, the ability to connect to an overall ecosystem of technology. And then the fourth category is about learning. Learning from the perspective of the skills that are necessary. Do you have the right teams of experts? Are you building those skills in-house and marrying them up with maybe partners that you need to leverage, like our Oracle consulting team as an example? Learning also from the data. Now that you're unlocking different ways of understanding that data, and we, again, referencing back to our great story at the beginning of this webinar, this is an expansion area. Now that Chris is on the cloud, he's able to start leveraging the benefits of BI and intelligence in a different way. And then the last tile in our learn category is about learning from the governance of your estate. You now have a cloud estate. You need to pay attention to the traffic patterns. Are you using your cloud efficiently and optimally? And that moves us right into our fifth category, which is iterate. I mentioned that we don't like to think about cloud journey as something that has a destination, but rather it's kind of this ongoing optimization. And so our final category is around iterating your cloud evolution, optimizing it, looking at new ways of working, thinking about things like DevOps or chat ops from a process perspective. And finally, that co-sourcing notion. Do you have the right on-demand partnerships? Do you have the right expertise in an ecosystem of experts within your own organization and in your partners? So you can jot down some ideas about where you might want some help or you might need some thought leadership. But ideally, we can also guide you through this. So we can zoom in or out on the tiles that are the areas you most need to focus your team or your strategy in something we call our Hello Workshop. This is a zero-cost assessment. We do these workshops virtually for 2 to 4 hours, depending on what's needed for your team. And we give you something at the end that is a real assessment against this cloud evolution framework. So I can share with you an example of how we would flow through one of these sessions. The workshops are very flexible and modular, designed to meet your specific context based on the areas that you could use some help. We kind of jokingly say, ask anything, risk nothing, because it's a completely open, safe space to ask your questions about your cloud evolution. We will always try to begin, though, by getting an idea of your strategy. Where are you trying to drive your business? What are the dials that you need to turn, and where do you need to change your business? Then we'll set up some ideas around hypotheses that we could test, ideas that we could test around what changes could we make for your business, and provide some points of view. It's a really complex landscape, and I know that every business, as they're trying to make these decisions, is constantly consuming new information. So if we could help shape that for you or provide some guidance, we'll then wrap with some case studies and best practices. So we'll marry it up with some reality, like we're doing in this webinar, real stories that can ground those decisions in those who've come before, lessons learned, seen best practices. And then after we finish this session, we'll give you a readout, a playback, with a cloud evolution analysis and some suggested next steps, so that you're not just left with some good ideas, you've got a real practical next way forward. So if you're excited about that idea, why not do something fun with your team for a few hours? We promise to make it lively and thought-provoking. You can sign up for a session, and you can also read more about the Cloud Evolution Framework on the OCI blog post. So don't go anywhere. It is your turn. We thank you all for attending, and a special thanks to Chris Hall for sharing his experience. We're now going to open this up to you for your questions.